Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. For those who don't know me, my name is Luca and I'm a senior consultant here at SSH, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to this fantastic online event. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Mr. Philip Gobbe from 7-Eleven. Thank you, Philip.
Yeah.
We actually heard from 7-Eleven about a year ago regarding their ways of working journey. This time with Philip, we will explore how data is driving continuous improvement across teams within their technology areas and beyond. More specifically, we'll take a closer look at one, how 7-Eleven leverages data and metrics to enhance ways of working and enable flow. Two, empowering teams with the tools and insights they need to reflect, adapt, and improve. And lastly, enabling teams to take ownership of improving ways of working outcomes through continuous learning and data-driven insights. With that said, thank you so much for joining us, Philip. We're so excited to hear more. If you're ready, over to you.
Thanks, Luca. I will try and pretend like I know what I'm doing with Zoom, and hopefully this works perfectly fine. I am going to try and keep an eye on just for everyone, just on the chat. If you do have any questions and it's relevant to the slide, I'll jump in, but we will probably try and we'll definitely capture those at the end as Luca mentioned. So yeah, thank you for that introduction. Look, it's really exciting that I've been invited along to do this, and really keen to share our story about building a better value, sooner, safer, happier dashboard at 7-Eleven. The story starts with the tech area. So the tech area at 7-Eleven had sort of been on a bit of a journey before in terms of Agile, before we sort of the whole organization and as you can see in that previous video went through the transformation. So they sort of had a bit of a head start, and they were thinking about a couple of different things. What can we do differently when it comes to ways of working? And they wanted to trial a few different dashboards or trying to understand data better. They had some success, but what it really led to was, January 2024, we started 3 Agile coaches, myself included, and a couple of SMEs, built this dashboard that I'm about to show you now within 3 months with the first iteration going live in April 2024. Our goal, as I said, in the tech area, this is where the focus comes from. Our goal was really to try and understand how can we deliver more value, reduce lead times, make sure we're working smarter, and make work easier for the squads. So what we did is we initially began working with the tech leadership team and a couple of squads to do some value stream mapping exercises, or also known as flow mapping for some people out there, to really help squads understand how their work flowed and where it might get stuck. This quickly led to evolving into using flow metrics. And for those who know the Project to Product book from Mick Kirsten, you may have heard of the flow framework. And we really leaned on that his work to understand how we could maybe capture some of that data from value stream mapping into an automatic dashboard. So we built a dashboard focused on those flow metrics, lead time, some work in progress metrics, throughput, along with diving into understanding active and wait times at each stage of the delivery process. What we did focus on, it was very much a delivery-centric dashboard. And so what we really determined as part of that is flow alone wasn't telling the whole story, and we were missing some connections to different outcomes. This led us to Sooner, Safer, Happier. So we were introduced to, and the tech leadership team were introduced to Sooner, Safer, Happier. Maria and John Smart came and spoke with us at 7-Eleven Australia. We sort of dived into the book and a little bit more detail about that as a group. And as we had sort of started analyzing the work we had done in understanding this data, we thought, all right, how do we then get into the next phase? how do we connect this to more than just the sooner part? And that was fairly obvious for us, right? It's in the name, better value, sooner, safer, happier. And we sort of felt like the sooner was mostly covered. So we jumped into how do we get something that shows better value, safer, and happier? We were inspired by Zolt's work, and he did a presentation with Nationwide that we sort of watched and went, oh, we can do that. So we thought, let's go and build a dashboard that connects more than just delivery and connect those customer and team outcomes as well. So here we have it, the dials on the dashboard. We introduced this in April 2024. We really understood that, hey, it can't just be a fancy looking dashboard with some alerts. We really need to give access to people to be able to drill down into more detail. So that's what we created. We connected our system that shows OKRs, which is the value component, and the workflow tool straight into this dashboard. And we've actually now expanded that to our ITSM tool so that we can see the change management information and report on that. And also our cloud portal, so we can get some back-end system information in there, which is really helpful from a KPI point of view. The way that we got squads using the dashboard, everyone had sort of already been on the journey in the tech area to some extent and some understanding. We really needed to take that next step to make it so that data and was turning into information and stories. So we initially started with inviting squads to work with the leadership team on, hey, how can we work as a group? What are you finding? Can the tech leadership team help you in any way? Create some feedback loops. We also set up a showcase session, and this is a bit of a copy and paste of exactly what Zolt did. And we went, all right, let's get a showcase, because we were not just, it wasn't just one iteration, bang, it's alive in April 2024. That was just the start. And so we knew we were constantly making improvements. So we invited them to come and watch what the new features were that we were delivering. And give us some feedback on that and ask questions and try and learn more. But also we asked them to come and share their experiences with each other. This worked really, really well after go live for the first few months. We really noticed straight away some benefits for some squads. The showcase and learning sessions did help with that instant feedback. And so what we really wanted to do is continue that. Since releasing, part of that feedback, we've released 7 new metrics. It's actually more than that, but when I sort of quickly counted, it's 7 since the very first sort of initial releases, and we've had some come and go that we've trialed. And today I got an email about getting some more in there, so that's really cool to constantly get that feedback. We really use those sessions to try and understand where those innovators and early adopters are and what's working well, what incentives are working to bring them across the line. And so we've had a lot of back and forth as to what we try and a lot of learning. So one of those key learnings is that the squads that were getting lots of benefits straight away were actually the ones who integrated this into their way that they actually work. And putting them into ceremonies, integrated into just their practices of how they run things like retros and sprint reviews. Where I'd say we're at now is we're starting to build that bridge across the chasm. So probably a bit of work to do to get to that early majority and beyond. So what I'll show you now is a couple of cool examples of how the dashboard's being used. And then we'll get into some next steps after that on how we will build that bridge. So I think this is probably a first really obvious one where we reduced some lead times. We had a squad that was really keen to understand basically why aren't they hitting their sprint goals? They felt that there was a problem and they had a pretty good idea it was in the UAT space. But utilizing the data and seeing the obvious curve here around, that create phase, you can see the create phase there, and quite a few of those that's attached to the UAT. They did notice a lot of other wait time, but that was constraints that made sense. So what they did is they went, oh, great, it is UAT. We can see that is a problem. So they looked at how do they reduce that, and they started to use data to highlight that that is a problem. They've tried a few different things and they've started to reduce that, which, considering it was actually their biggest bottleneck once they started delivery, they know that that's positively impacting the lead time. We've had some really good success with a couple of squads around their work in progress and their backlog side. So we took the flow load part of the dashboard, and they have used that to track how they're going when it comes to their velocity and their lead time. A couple of particular squads have been able to determine that actually reducing the backlog, even though they're making some pieces of work, breaking them down into smaller chunks, they know that it flows much better when it's smaller. So they've been able to succeed there, but they've also been able to reduce their cognitive load by getting rid of stuff that they're just never going to deliver. Requests that come in that they need to look at, but they don't then actually make sure they remove it. So that's a really cool thing to know, that although a lot of our tech squads, I think all of them have a really high EMPS, we know that reducing their cognitive load has an impact on their engagement and making sure we have happier employees. A really big theme is making sure that we connect to the golden thread so that we understand that the work we do is positively impacting the value that we're trying to execute as an organization. So what we this is probably where we experimented the most. We created a view that says, how many KRs do we have that are not connected to any user stories? So user stories being the lowest level of work for us at 7-Eleven for the tech squads. And what we discovered is quite a few squads had KRs committed to deliver value by the end of the quarter, and measured in that way. But they actually hadn't planned enough work attached to those KRs early enough. So this has led to some positive call outs around asking for help earlier, and also being able to understand if those KRs were not actually achievable and they needed to reprioritize and be able to focus on effort on things that they can actually achieve. This is probably not as useful anymore to us because that behavior and mindset has shifted. We really wanted to make a huge impact on making sure that our customers weren't negatively impacted when using the app. And this is a plug for the My 7-Eleven app. If you don't have it and you're not locking in your fuel, go ahead and do that, because it will help you out, especially with fuel prices constantly changing. But every time you use that app, there is a whole lot of interactions going on, and we know that you can have a bad experience if we have this particular measure is increasing, and if it's dropping, then our customers will have a better experience. So what we've been able to do is pull that information from our cloud system, and we're using that to just say, hey, we actually implemented this as a KR because we really wanted to make a huge positive impact. And now it's actually a KPI. So it's a really good one for us to constantly keep track of, because we can see that improvement over time. And if it does have a spike, we can have a really good conversation around that. This actually does lead into tech debt as well. Most of those items that were negatively impacting that rate were actually tech debt items. So not just to solve that particular issue, but to make sure that we're constantly working on tech debt. We know that it doesn't need to be our number one thing. We also need to make sure we're delivering features that will deliver new value, but we needed to make sure we stay on top of our tech debt. So as you can see there, in March this year we had quite a lot of, so purple is our tech debt item, and we had quite a good chunk of tech debt being delivered, and that does go up and down. Our biggest problem with this is actually making sure that squads are tagging it correctly. So it's probably another learning there for everyone, that a lot of this data relies on squads making sure they're tagging data. And we've had heaps of learnings from squads going, oh, if we actually make sure our system's set up properly, it delivers some really useful data. I think this is probably our last one that I'll share with you here. But more recently, we've started to want to track our change management process. So yep, let's make sure that, you know, one of those DevOps 4 key metrics is tracking failed changes. So we've got this failed change rate that we wanted to track to make sure, hey, are we really making sure that we're improving our delivery over time, or are we just, you know, not even worried about it, letting squads do their own thing? We also don't want to block by having a change management process. It should be a positive thing. It should enable fast flow of high valuable, high quality delivered items. So we also wanted to start tracking if there are any illegitimate bottlenecks. What we did, example, just by digging into that data really early, is we had a lot of our changes relying on one particular change approver. So there's already been changes into making sure we have multiple change approvers, but also if a particular change or a particular deployment doesn't need that approval process, let's make sure that we're not forcing them to go through that process. So I'm hoping that the couple of questions that I've seen there will be answered in a moment. I think they're really cool and important questions. So what's next? And then I'll get into the recap. Hopefully it captures that. What's next for us is that change failure rate and MTTR, which you would have seen in the very, very first part, it's at an overall level. And we're not capturing it at the system or platform or product level, which means that our squads aren't able to analyze it from their point of view. So we're going to work on trying to get it down to the system level. And actually, it shouldn't be too much work. But again, that's where the data from the source system is really important to make sure we can link it to the dashboard and actually have a positive impact. We are going to start, so we've shifted away from some of the original way that we were sharing the dashboard. And so now we've got a tech leadership forum, and as you've seen through this presentation so far, some of those measures have actually started to turn into KPIs. And so we're going to use at that tech leadership forum to share some insights as part of the KPI accountability, so that we're sharing and collecting information, and also helping to keep ourselves accountable to what improvements we're going to make and the outcomes we want to achieve. We are going to set up a sharing and learn session focused on continuous improvement and measuring, not just around the dashboard. And we do know that it's really important for squads to make sure that continuous improvement is part of what they're doing and not an additional thing. There has been a little bit of experience where we've had other parts of the business wanting to track a couple of things, and we have had some really good success by using the data from this dashboard. And how are we actually helping those other squads outside of the tech areas to get some of this data? Obviously, quite a few of those things are very tech centric. So whatever next steps we do, we'll have to experiment with different business areas as we go outside of tech. And as always, we're going to keep doing lots of test and learn and experimenting as we go to make sure we're delivering the right value to the right areas. So just a quick recap. Look, our goal wasn't to build a dashboard. It became a goal for sure. but we always have to make sure we come back to what was it for, and it was really to make sure that we're helping teams work smarter, and make getting stuff done easier for them. The data alone is not helpful. The data alone doesn't do anything if you don't have a story that helps teams, and then they can drive actions with those. Continuous improvement is part of the squad's effort. I did just mention that before. It really isn't an additional activity. One of my favorite sayings from Gene Kim, which we've got there on the screen, improving daily work is as important as daily work, but it's also integrated. They're not separate things from each other. You've got to continue evolving these things. You can't just go, hey, here you go, here's a tool, go and make it work, guys. You really need to make sure you're evolving it, learning what the feedback is, and actioning that and working with different areas. And mapping flow is a really, really great starting point. So yeah, I think this is just maybe I can keep this up as we do Q&A, guys, but thank you for your time, and this is just a couple of drill downs that I was sort of talking about.